In today's episode of the Real Talk podcast, I sit down with Richard Nicholls. I reached out to Richard to hear his experience with a recent fraud case in which he's been found guilty of and sent for a stint inside. He shares how the events unfolded within a 2-year period which led to his being sentenced. Now Richard's pursuing his passion within the HMO space, known as the HMO Sales Expert. He's rebuilding his career and his life and sharing his experience and knowledge within the HMO space. During the episode, Richard opens up to the mistakes that he made on multiple construction projects. We dive into his prison experience, what it was like day to day, how he felt, and how he even taught prisoners property strategy whilst he was inside. An incredible episode, and so grateful for Richard taking a time out to share his story so openly. Hope you enjoy it. Richard, welcome to the Real Talk podcast. Thanks for making the trip up from Shrewsbury.
Yeah.
I was down there last week.
Were you?
Yeah. Stu Woodings, do you know Stu Woodings?
I do.
Jeweller.
Yeah.
Wife went and stung me for a couple of grand in one of his shops.
Oh, so I know Stu fairly well. Yeah. Actually, briefly chatted to him yesterday because he's got a few bits going on. I've told you about in Shrewsbury. Yeah. So that's a small world. Yeah.
So I've connected with you, mate, because I absolutely love how you have, I'm sure you won't mind me saying, fucked up, and how you openly, honestly share that learning, share that message on publicly on your social media. And I think that's a really courageous thing to do for anyone in business. And I've been through similar tribulations myself, and I wanted to get you up today to sort of talk about what happened, what went wrong, and what people could learn from that process. So just tell us what happened, what went wrong, like in a nutshell.
I think to start with, talking about when I talk about it publicly, I just kind of when I came out, and we'll talk about what happened, but when I came out this about 6-7 months ago, I just thought, well, I feel the right thing to do for me is just to sort of carry on and talk about it. I'm not ashamed by what happened, and I'm owning the fuck-ups that I made, because I feel like, you learn from them, and some of them were almighty fuck-ups. But there does seem to have been, it's not control. I had no, somebody said to me, messaged me and said, oh, I can tell that you've got a PR person lining up your posts for you. And I'm thinking, fuck it, I wake up about 5 in the morning, hide away in the bathroom from the kids and just write whatever's in my mind that morning. I've got literally no agenda other than the fact that I still want to have a career. I still really like the clients that I've got and the world that I work in, and I just wanted to be myself and get out there and talk about what's happened. And it just since turned out, what I've learned over the last 6 months, probably why we're talking now, not that many people do that out of embarrassment or even just out of being a shyster and trying to run away, whatever situation is. And it takes a lot of energy. You spend a lot of energy, emotional energy, doing that, if I'm honest, trying to process it publicly and trying to have a public rebuild after a big we will talk about how big the cock-up was, and obviously publicly as well with the press and things like that. But the energy drain on that is kind of matched by the support you get, and also the fact that you think, wow, maybe I have got a career, and maybe people want to hear this story. So you get all that positivity. Even last night it said, on Facebook where it says someone you may know, and it sends you a message. So you think, oh, who is it going to be? Which lady from Thailand is it now? Because there's loads of weird ones, isn't there? It was a guy saying, look, you don't know me, but we've got a few mutual friends. Just wanted to say, I've been through something similar and I didn't have the balls to stand up, and I wish I did, sort of thing. And that makes it worthwhile when I get a moment where I'm just paralysed with anxiety about it, sort of thing. So to me, my natural sort of personality is just get it out, talk about it. And I think that's probably what got me in trouble, that natural sort of personality trait, which we'll talk about. I think that's why I got made an example of through that process, because of my natural just blurting stuff out. And then afterwards, I think that's probably going to give me an opportunity to build a career again as well.
Yeah, by blurting stuff out.
By just being just totally completely transparent at all times. Got me in a lot of trouble being that kind of person. But I think I made genuine mistakes, and up until, which we'll talk about, but up until the very last job, I thought I could put it right.
So what happened?
I ultimately got charged. I got sentenced, criminally charged for fraud by false misrepresentation. So I got myself in London at the wrong time, at a time when I was not in the right headspace, but you don't realise that until hindsight.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know in terms of your own capacity to cope with things at that time. Started working in residential building industry. I sell property. I'm qualified at selling property. I've been an estate agent for 20 years in some form, and obviously most people know me for the work I did prior to moving to London. I actually had the property advantage, and then stopped for 18 months, and then came out and carried on the property advantage. But I specialise in investment sales, investment brokering. That's what I do, and obviously some form of estate agency. Fell in what I thought was a good move into just residential extensions. I had some experience of working with builders, flips, and I'd done a few projects previously and worked with a few. I'd even done a couple of residential jobs previously, but not in London. And then I met a builder in London that I thought he was going to find the work. Sorry, I was going to find the work. He was going to do the work. Decent builder. We did a couple of jobs, and then he decides to move back to Romania with his wife. By this point, we had maybe £110,000 project just booked in the diary. Builder goes. What do? You go on Rated People and you find another builder. And this builder, I met this guy. I remember him. Graham turned up in this battered old van, Cockney guy, the best builder in London. Saw me coming from a mile off, saw this big project, looked at me and just thought, right, well, this is a soft touch. And he rang rings around me for 5 jobs. Since turned out he wasn't even digging foundations to the right depth. So I just didn't have this knowledge. I was going to the client saying, this will be done. Look, can we take this stage payment? Paying Graham. But Graham was just the quality of workmanship, the delays on site.
So you were just a middleman in this process, technically.
But I was the middleman, but I was putting myself forward as the front man.
Yeah, I get that. So you're selling a service to a customer and then outsourcing it to a builder.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've just shared there that the builder ran rings around you and had you over in some way. How have you looked at that situation? If you have, I hope you're seeming to have, and took personal responsibility for that situation.
Fully, yeah.
Because but how have you done that? Most people would sit there and go, "Builder fucked me over, fucking cowboy builder, this, that, and the other," and I was
the single point of failure. Because if I knew how to vet and check a builder, which you talk about these things, but I didn't know that, so I learned the hard way. I think outside of London, there's communities where most people. My experience of working in the building industry prior to that was, you see the electrician at the school gates and the local builder, the vans around. So it's very difficult in a small place, for example, Shrewsbury, or so. There's a lot more accountability from the builders locally, even on the small stuff, because people talk and people know recommendation. London's a completely anonymous city. I didn't find that there's any local communities in these. Everybody just goes back to their. These were fairly decent sized houses in the outskirts of London, like southeast London, and each next door neighbour didn't know each other. They didn't have that community. So all of the builders were anonymous to me. So I told the clients that I had a competent build team. The initial conversation was true because it was this guy that I knew and you could perform. From that, then I was blagging it basically, and I didn't realise I was blagging it. It's only a blag if it backfires, isn't it? And it backfired on me. And so this Graham guy came down, sold me the earth, started everything. All the jobs start well. So you've got 2 or 3 projects on. All the holes are being dug, the concrete's being ordered, the skips are coming and going. There's all these labourers running around. Before you know it, you're 60% of the build project in, and then it's a case of, how do I finish these jobs? Because Graham spent all the money digging holes and smoking all day, and that was literally what happened. But in terms of my responsibility to that, they wouldn't have booked the jobs in if it wasn't for me being able to, sell them a good, good website, good marketing material. I turned up to their house and talked to them how I would talk to them rather than Graham, because Graham was not able to book these jobs in because he couldn't access that type of level of client because he was, you know, I mean, he had neighbour complaints about how much he swore, you know, sort of thing. He was really just a jobbing builder that just, you know, he just constantly for 25 years have gone around job after job, just cocking up basically all different parts of London. No accountability. So without me, these jobs wouldn't have started. And if I was experienced, I would have had a due diligence process to check on Graham or the other Grahams, because I think the misconception with my crime was that it was me doing the jobs on a rinse and repeat to cock up on purpose. That's what essentially Trading Standard tried to sort of say initially, but actually nearly every single job had a different build team. Because you're trying different stuff. I was trying to employ people directly, subby, do this. You know, I had Australians, I had Polish, I had, you know, all sorts of different people, loads of different Grahams across the jobs. But the common denominator was I wasn't experienced enough to either find the right builder or manage them. And because the building industry was so cash flow heavy, you're pushing down a huge, massive Ponzi scheme down the road, aren't you? And I, again, thought that certain jobs were closer than they were to finishing, or that certain things would be easier to wiggle out of. If I make this change, then I can get 20 grand from there to help that job back, or I can get some profit off that one to pay him. That never happens because I'm the single point of failure. I'm not addressing my problems with, you know, most of these builders saw me come in as like wet behind the ears, but have got access to book. I was the guy, I was the cash cow. That just kept on booking in loads of really high value jobs. So the builders were swarming around me like bees. And I thought they were all my mate. You know, to be honest with you, I thought they had my back. I thought they were good guys. And then I'd reach breaking point with them. I'd have to try a new team. And then this big gypsy guy called Jason, who, when I left and moved to Shrewsbury, he came to my house trying to claim some money. And I said, look, I'm being investigated. Got in his car and legged it.
Really?
Yeah. So this gypsy guy tried to find me to get some money off me, and then as soon as he realised that he might get brought through, because he, you know, this gypsy guy bullied me for about 2 years. Not 2 years, sorry, about a year. The overall thing was just under 2 years. I had my car tyres slashed by builders, and all of that is, I thought, you know, that at some point I'll find the right formula to put all this right. What actually happened is that a pattern of mistakes were happening, a pattern of jobs were going wrong. I built up a situation where there's a couple of £100,000 worth of losses at this point across certain jobs, and obviously cash flow, tax, there's cash payments coming in. You know, it's a nightmare. Everything is just all over the place. And then one of the labourers said to me, look, just to let you know, 2 of these clients have approached Trading Standards because they believe there's a bit of a pattern, and they believe that you've cocked up more than just the 2 jobs that they know about. So they've gone to Trading Standards, and you know, I showed you before to put it into context. But then I just emailed Trading Standards and sort of said, look, this is who I am. If you need to speak to me, let me know. And they said, look, we'll be in touch. Thank you for getting in touch. And then I think this was mid 2017 by this point, and I gave up the go, and I was like, look, I can't do this. The underlying sort of theme that was threading underneath this that meant that my headspace wasn't in the right place, which we'll come into, was I was in a custody battle because my ex basically tried to run away with my newborn baby. So I had a 2.5 year in the end custody battle. At the end of 2017, we were awarded shared custody on the basis that we moved to Shrewsbury. So even though I was cocking up all these jobs and my work life was just going horribly wrong, all of my attention was focused on getting the shared custody. And so I was focused on something else. So I felt justified that was all worth it. Not worth it cocking the jobs up, but I didn't have any real care and attention to the building jobs because I had something so much bigger in my life at the time. And when we were awarded shared custody, I remember saying to my missus at the time, like, look, I'll put the building jobs right, but at least I've done the right by my son. You know, at least I've kind of, you know, we can build a family now around my son, and you know, my daughters will know him, and we've got like a full family unit and all that sort of stuff. So we moved up to Shrewsbury. Didn't hear anything from Trading Standards for another year. So I got back on the horse with so the property advantage, got back into the industry that I'm good at. Said I'm never going anywhere near another builder ever again. Learned my lessons. Learned just because somebody said to me, until you know where the brake is, if you go around the Nuremberg ring with a car with only an accelerator, you're not going to win the race, are you?
No, of course not.
So you need a brake.
Yeah.
My personality trait, I didn't learn to have a break about what I'm good at and what I'm not good at until I'd royally fucked up. Because 100 miles an hour, people pleaser, I like attention, so bringing all these jobs in, promising these things to clients. In hindsight, you were committing fraud at that time. You weren't good at what you're doing, all that sort of stuff. But during when it's actually happening, I'm just reverting to type. I'm just doing what I'm good at. And I was booking jobs in. I was meeting clients in the evening. As I was doing everything that I'm almost like doing now. But I was doing it in an industry I had no idea, and I had no control over the contracts I was signing. And then I came out of that experience with my tail between my legs, got back into property in an industry that I know, that I can do, that I can, and what's been quite interesting over that last 5 years of building up the property advantage, you think we've had COVID, I've had business partners quit, I've had massive issues with, the economy doing this or whatever it is, and you because it's the industry you're in, you know how to, you have all of these hurdles and issues, and when I think back, actually I've been through more in the last 5 or 6 years, but being successful professionally. Then when I folded like a pack of cards in London, when I couldn't cope, but I had obviously the custody battle, or I had various other things going on, they don't pull down someone who's who's on top of their career, who's in an industry that they're good at, that they know inside out, because you can overcome issues. Whereas I was in the building industry, I had issues personally, and then I had builders that weren't performing, and it was a perfect storm of, went to prison for it. Yeah.
So what happened to the money? I'm always interested to see when someone gets in the shit financially. Like, money just doesn't disappear, right? So I'm guessing that the complaint becomes customers paid for works that's not transpired.
Yeah, delays on site, basically.
Delays on site, so it's lost in inefficiency.
All of the statements from the clients were essentially, there were accusations that I'd taken money.
Yeah.
Because from the client's perspective, they think that, I had a battered old Mitsubishi L200, and in late 2017 I went bankrupt owing my own gas bill. I had no money, but the money was going just hemorrhaging on bad jobs, every job, every client statement said, look, this was a 10-week project, and now we're here 20 weeks in. And I remember saying to Trading Standards at the interview, you ask me where the money's gone, and we go through these statements, that's where the money's gone. If it's a 10-week project, but we're now 20 weeks in, and I'm paying these guys $7,000 a week in wages and all that, that's where the money, it hemorrhaged on bad workmanship, having to redo things, and delays on site. Yeah, but each job got to the point of, I think there was one picture online which shows a complete wreck of an internal property. Most weren't like that. Most were just like the final 20% that didn't get done. Because obviously projects were running out. There was one where I couldn't afford to pay for her bifold doors at the end, so they were fitted, but I just didn't have enough money to pay for the final doors, things like that. Others were run out of money halfway through, but it was all just bad management. Yeah.
And at what point was it in the process? Not like the date, but when did you go, I'm fucked up here?
Halfway through. Yeah, if I'm honest, this is another thing that made it difficult for me to. I was totally happy to. I accepted responsibility, and then at the earliest opportunity, just said, "Yep, guilty, whatever it is." But halfway through, I changed limited company, because the first company was just. So I went round to the client and said, "Look, I can't put this right," but I knew I couldn't put it right because of the VAT, the tax, everything. So I had a meeting with this guy called Rick, who was a project manager, and Rick, we agreed, set up a whole brand new company, start again with me finding the job, but then with this project manager on this different level, and then we would go again with similar projects, and then that would be the sort of fresh start that we needed. So I tried to have a fresh start halfway through, and then we booked in another 5 or 6 jobs. That's why there were 2 sort of sets of jobs that went wrong. The next stage, they all went wrong. And the reason why they all went wrong is because Rick didn't go through his notice period. Rick didn't start with me. He did half a job. It was over the middle Christmas. I think he did half a job, but he was moving down from the north to come and move to London. He was just trying to set a career as a project manager in London and move to the big smoke. And he went back up north after a month or something. So then I ended up recruiting a project manager called Chloe, like this female lady who was qualified in certain bits in project management, thinking, right, I've got to do things differently this time. And I just couldn't. I just couldn't get it right. I just couldn't run projects, and I couldn't manage the cash flow. And I was going through too much stuff myself personally. We were talking before that the big difference that I noticed in that period with hindsight, if there's any form of confrontation with anybody at that point, I would spend hours in my car, like hiding away from it, sort of, well, in this van. And I used to get parking tickets constantly in this car park on Old Kent Road, because it was the McDonald's car park on Old Kent Road. I would drive there, sit in my car all day, and then drive home and pretend I'd been at work. That's because I was just too scared to go to the building jobs.
Hiding from reality.
Yeah.
Do you know, I see that so often. I know some people in, I won't say the same situation as you, but very similar. You know, they're in negative cash flow positions, projects upside down, borrowed too much money, overgeared on all the lending. And when it comes to talking about it, I've literally had people say, I don't want to talk about that. Because they know that pain is going to come up. Yeah.
What I've experienced, with the caveat of my son, because since I got sentenced, which we jump a little bit timeline, but I've lost shared custody again now. So now I'm back in a custody battle.
Right.
So that's the only thing where the fear of it has matched the reality, because obviously I wake up every day sad that that's happened, and it's very upsetting on that aspect. But everything else, the fear of being caught fucking up, or because the amount of people that have messaged me, and there's a few that are in the industry now that have in the property industry, not the residential, who are taking JV money and taking all these investor funds and things like that, which is not what I was involved in, but there's similarities with, you know, getting beyond the point when then all of a sudden you start taking bad money to pay good money. It's a Ponzi.
Totally.
And one guy, it was in January when I'd just come out of prison, and he at the moment is going through lots and lots and lots of criminal investigations, basically talking millions of pounds, and he messaged me on Facebook and said, how did you get caught?
Fuck off.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, what weird, but I didn't know this.
Weird question.
Yeah. So anyway, so he's in a particular part of the country where I know a few people in property, and I messaged one person and I said, you ever heard of this bloke? And this girl went, oh my God, let me tell you about him. You know, blah, 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 real. And I said, that makes sense, because he's one of only a couple of people this year who have tried to suss out how I got caught, so then how can they avoid getting caught? And I thought, how fucking weird is that?
That is a weird question, isn't it?
And that's why I've got that screenshot about the trading standards, because I've sent it to those people and said, well, how I've got caught is, you know, if you've got the mindset to try and get away and, you know, and not be punished for something that you're aware you're doing something wrong and you're trying to wriggle yourself out of it. I don't want to get involved in that. I don't want anything to do with you, because, you know, I had a process of denying it to myself, lying to my family about how bad things were on the jobs and stuff like that, but masking it because each new job brings cash flow in, you can hide it. So I had a simple life. I haven't got expensive clothes, you know, things like that. And so I had no cars, no flash, you know, nothing like that. So you're able to just sort of survive and make it look like the problem's not that bad. But the minute you know the game's up and you can't get out of it, you hold your hands up. And then I was told that I couldn't have direct contact with these 11 clients when it was a criminal investigation. So I just had to go to my solicitor and save compensation that way. And so I haven't had any direct dealing with them. One of them's messaged me since, but prior, for the 5 or 6 years prior, you know, in between, you can't, can you? But you're still on social media every day, you're still building a business, you've still got full transparency, you're still, because I think the worst thing to do is do something intentionally, or even if you start with the best intentions with this guy, probably most of these fraudsters start with a good intention, then they fuck up and get out of the depth, and then they start committing the fraud.
Yeah.
Because they're digging. That was my case. Never anything intentional.
Mm-hmm.
But the minute you start trying to learn how to not get caught, to me that's criminal.
Something different. Yeah, totally.
That's something completely different. So yeah, it's I don't know. I think with my situation, I feel like I've got a bit of a story to tell and a bit of
definitely. And how long were you sentenced to?
I got sentenced for 3 years.
Yeah, and you
served. See, this will make you laugh, right? I got sentenced on December the 23rd, right?
Nice, happy Christmas.
Yeah. So because I was saying to you before that my original sentencing hearing was the September.
Yeah. What year was this?
22.
Oh, 22.
Yeah. So went to this sentencing hearing. We were talking about losses. So my barrister was always on losses. In the end, I got sentenced against quote value. So they changed the value, so it jumped up, tripled basically the quote value. Which, again, fair enough, because fraud by false misrepresentation. They trusted me. I signed, terms. I gave them a quote. So I got sentenced against the quotes. Then I got sentenced on December the 23rd. 3 years. So I'm thinking, right, okay, well, you do 18 months, don't you? Mm-hmm. And then they said, oh, you've qualified for TAG, early release. So you go on HDC, which is an early release, and it's just been extended to six months. So I'm thinking, right, okay, what's 18 months take away 6 months?
12 months.
So you get sentenced on December the 23rd. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, I'll be home for Christmas.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Fucking falls on bank holidays, so my release date ends up being the Saturday of the Christmas. But if you're due for release at the end of your term, you go the day before. So if it's a bank holiday or a weekend, your release date, you end up going on the Friday. Mm-hmm. And they've actually changed that since, where now you go on a Thursday, because it doesn't give them enough time for people to get housing on the Friday. Mm-hmm. But when it's the TAG release, you go after the bank holiday. So I spent exactly a year in prison, but missed 2 Christmases. So I ended up, because of the bank holiday process, I did 4 extra days. Yeah. So I did a year and 4 days, and you can imagine those 4 days. I was like, oh my God. Yeah. So it's like, my missus is like...
Longer than the year.
Yeah, it was hard. Yeah. And then, so I had a real identity crisis in the first 3 months of being sentenced, because it was so long ago, and I knew what I was crap at, and I knew I'd fucked up, and I'd spent a lot of time rebuilding a business to save money, and it sounds ridiculous, but I went down to the court cases in London feeling proud of myself. Ultimately, that backfired. It was a bit naivety on me, thinking that trading standards, his prosecution team are going to go, oh, we're proud of you too, Richard. Yeah. They just wanted, the factual elements are, there's aggrieved, you're the people that have aggrieved them, we're going to do the harshest punishment on you. That's the reality of it. But yeah, so I knew that leave London, as soon as I got shared custody with my son, clouds had lifted. Then you'd look back in hindsight, anxiety, a bit of mental health. We'll talk about the gambling in a minute, but all of those things were a result of fighting every day for all of those. As soon as I got shared custody, left London, got back into HMOs, got back into something that I'm good at, that I can complete a project and fulfill a client and do the right thing, all of those sort of stuff. So, and then I got a business partner as well at that point, someone to make sure the money's okay, because I'm not good at attention to detail. So if you leave me alone for 4 or 5 months with a business, the expenses and receipts will just be all piled up there. That's just because I'm just all over the place. Yeah. But then you need a complementary business partner, don't you? Things like that. So I went through all of that. I know what I did wrong, and I know I did all that in January 2018 sort of thing, or late 17 when we moved up to Shrewsbury. Getting sentenced so many years later, the first 3 months in prison, knowing with what the press wrote about me as well, and knowing that it was quite a high profile thing on all the HMO networking groups and property groups with what happened, and none of them had any context apart from what they read, I'm thinking, well, who am I now? because like when I actually fucked up, I knew that I just needed to get into my proper career again and just get back to what I'm good at.
And this was also like 6 years after the incident, right?
So I had a really good business.
Yeah.
I had a lot of respect in the industry, and then all that went. I lost my business, lost shared custody of my son, had all these paper articles about me, and then I spent a couple of months in prison. Well, I don't know like what I need to change now, because obviously I can't go back into property because everyone hates me. So I said, what do I do now? A complete sort of identity crisis. Yeah. And it wasn't until I got my shit together, probably 3 months into prison, and I remember writing in my diary, I wrote, "I am not a prisoner," one day, and I just thought, I'm just going to learn, educate myself, get my shit together, write a business plan, be positive, and what will happen will happen.
Yeah. What was day to day like inside for you?
Started off, I hardly spoke, to be honest. I was a bag of nerves because I've got issues with my eyes as well. And if you've read one of the newspapers, it said I made up an eye condition to fleece people out of money. Yeah, which is, I got told, it said, I don't know if you've read this, but it said I pretended to clients I was going blind. Something like that. And it's like, how has the paper written that? I just don't understand. So I've got this eye condition, and I need these drops and this, I've got like glass contacts, so I've got to obviously wash them. But the prison wouldn't let me have the liquid. So I didn't have my eye, so my eyes were getting really bad. I couldn't go out in the sun. I had to get special dispensation to have sunglasses sent in. Yeah. And so I didn't have my wits about me because I couldn't. It was like being underwater on the wing a lot of the time. They let me have one bottle after about 10 days, and then that bottle ran out by February. So then I spent most of February again without any. So for 2 periods, I was just I was so nervous because I got sentenced in London, and I went to Thameside in East London, which is just full of gang lads. Yeah, and then I think I was big enough not to be bullied. I could help with their paperwork. I was trying to be friendly and trying to keep my distance, and didn't really get into that many scrapes because I was just there's a lot of gossiping and shit stirring and people trying to trap you and trick you and be little, and obviously I just tried to stay away from all of that and just focus on, for the first couple of months I was not ashamed to admit it, but if someone had given me a rope, I probably would have done myself in. It was bad. It was pretty horrific. And you make a few little connections, and I remember there was this one guy who was like the drug dealer on the wing, who was like the most respected, and I helped him with his probation paperwork, and that got me like a little bit of credit. And then one day he asked me to pass a marker pen through the gate to somebody else. I didn't realise I was passing drugs through the gate. But so I got on with him all right, and there was a few others, and then gradually I managed to get myself onto the enhanced wing. So when you're inside, it takes 12 weeks to get to enhanced status. So then I moved on to this wing. So I was in the London prison for 6 months, and I was actually in a remand prison for 6 months because they failed to categorise me. Because I got sentenced over Christmas, the staff weren't in to put my categorisation on. Yeah. So I was an uncategorised prisoner for 6 months, but I had no idea. So I should have gone to DCAT after a couple of weeks. Sat in a BCAT in London for 6 months. Yeah. But I ended up onto this enhanced wing where the energy was a little bit better because people had a bit more to lose. There were sort of a few IPPers on there and stuff like that. And then I got moved from there. Almost exactly 6 months, I got transferred to Fossway in Leicester. Yep. And we were the first intake of prisoners, so it was brand new. It was just literally been built. It was still a building site, and there was the first 100 prisoners, which I was in. We were moving mattresses, setting the prison up basically, set the library up, put all the books out, and just set the education department up. And then at that point, because I didn't walk onto a wing that was already established with the personnel. I was on our wing. We were the first 5 lads on our whole wing. So you see the people coming in, and you've got a bit more confidence around it. So what I did, I think probably after 4 months when I was in Thameside, I started writing what is potentially now the business plan that I'm working on now. I did a prisoner property education course and started teaching it one-to-one.
Yeah?
Yeah, so I had like Miles, I had, God, I can't think of the names now. Marcio, Miles, I had 3 students on the wing.
So he was teaching property education inside?
I brought it
997.
out. Say again?
997 quid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, a tin of tuna and some noodles. Yeah, but honestly, people paid me. One guy
What? Are you being serious? I thought you were taking a piss.
No, seriously. So when I wrote this thing saying I'm not a prisoner, then I thought, right, well, what can I remember at the top of my head? Didn't have a calculator or anything, so I was doing all these yields and incomes and all this. So it was probably A4. I don't know, 30, 40 pages of A4.
Mate, if there's ever been a definition of entrepreneur, someone selling property training in the fucking nick, it's that right there.
But this is the first time it's on camera because I've saved this to talk to you about.
Yeah, I love it.
I mentioned it once at the Property and Poppadoms networking event.
Yeah.
Because I've still got the handwritten training.
That's amazing.
And we used to go to the office and they would photocopy it so I had these 3 guys, and then I had this female officer called Kat, who did the course as well on the wing. And,
one of the screws
one of the
came on
screws.
your course.
Yeah.
That is fucking class.
But Miles, so Miles ended up he said to me one day, what's your date of birth? I was like, I gave him my date of birth. And then the next thing, he put 40 quid into my online money account. Yeah. So I got 40 quid for it. Yeah. And I was like, and that made me sort of really gave me a bit of a role on the wing, because people would go, you're the property guy, innit? Things like that. And I'd be like, look. But I even got to the point where I had a pre-set questionnaire form, because loads of people were just draining my energy and like they weren't really interested. So there was a couple of guys that said, oh, can you do, you're the guy that can do property training. So I had this like pre-set questionnaire. Again, it was on lined A4 paper, but I did boxes, fill in this box, what you're interested in, what would you like to achieve in property, and all this sort of stuff. And then I used to put it under their door, lock up, and if they couldn't be bothered filling that in, so we did that. And then by the time I got to Foss Way, in Thameside, Emma Hayes, I think her name was, she was the director of our block. And I asked her non-stop for about a month, please, can you let me onto the computer so I can actually type this up and have it as something that I can have. And I also had the HMO Sales Expert initial version 1 business plan going through my head, how I wanted to, if I was going out and if I could work back in HMOs, how would I rebuild the property advantage, sort of thing. Because like your business since 29, you've learned all the things that you've cocked up. If you had a chance now to completely start again with all of your same clients, you'd probably make a few changes, wouldn't you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I had that opportunity and I thought, right, I'm going to focus on that. It took me a month to get into this computer room, and all the lads, there's a lot of jealousy on the wing and things like that, and I was like, look, so the first day that they said I could go there, because in a BCAT prison you got every 20 yards there's a locked gate. So it's like, for me to go to the computer rooms 100 yards that way, it's like it takes 2 officers and a month to organise. It was so infuriating. So I just built all this handwritten stuff, and then I turned to the computer room and I got refused on that day, and I told these couple of guys on the wing that starting today I'm doing my business plan, and then I had to sit outside the computer room for 4 hours to be taken back on movements. I was just like crying. I was such a letdown. Got back on wing and my cellmate couldn't hide his delight. He was like, I told you, if you need anything in prison, you've got to come through people like me who can get the office to do stuff for you. I knew this was going to, and then it wasn't until probably a couple of days later I first sat at a computer, started typing away, turning it from handwritten notes, got it all typed up. Somebody said to me after 3 days, this guy, he said to me, every single day when you finish on your computers, press print, because you never know what's going to happen in prison. Like, something could happen and you could never go on that computer ever again. And I was like, that's good advice. So I went print, left that day, woke up the next day and got a knock on the door at 7 in the morning saying, right, Nichols, you're off to Foss Way. I was like,
Thank fuck you printed it.
So I printed it, and then I had all this printout, HMO Sales Expert, and I've still got all of those as well. And I just think that's part of what I want to talk about on the face-to-face networking events, in terms of, you know, be that pain, even just to type that business plan to go through, but just be focused on it. And you know, this is why now this business now just means like so much to me with the partners I've got involved now.
Yeah,
and stuff.
I bet that gave you so much identity and drive and purpose when you were inside and that happened.
Yeah, I read a book. I read quite a few books when I was in prison, and one of them, and by the way, this is no comparison, but this guy, you know, Dr. Can't remember his name, Jewish psychotherapist, doctor that was in Auschwitz. I think
Dr.
Frankl.
Yeah.
You've read his book?
Yeah.
Where it says the difference between people that could cope in Auschwitz and the ones that couldn't were the ones that had hope. Because no matter what and when I didn't have hope, those first couple of months, I would have killed myself. If the opportunity was there, I would have done it. You know, in my head I would have. Probably I would have chickened out, whatever. But as soon as I had something to cling on to in terms of hope, every single bit of my mindset changed. And then I didn't read Frankel's book until 6 months later when I was in Foss Way. And I thought, fucking hell, that is so true, because that's literally what I went through. And then when you get a letdown, so when I went to that computer room and this guy wouldn't let me go on it on that day, then your hope's gone. So then I'm back sat on that chair for 4 hours thinking, right, what is sturdy enough to put my pyjama pants around tonight to hang myself, you know? And you sat there, all those thoughts are in your head. And then you wake up the next day, get told you're allowed back on the computers, and the next thing you've got all this hope again. And it's so like fickle. And that, I think with every single day in prison, I went from wanting to run away from my family and never see anyone again because I'm no good, I'm not good enough. Within half an hour, sitting down on a one-on-one, doing some property training, thinking, fucking hell, you know, I could turn this into an opportunity. And it changed 5 times a day, every day. So weird, yeah. So I think a gradual improvement in mindset, but on a daily basis, hitting rock bottom several times as well, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's life been like since you got out?
I had a bit of a bubble. We were talking previously. I think you go through that whole process of you know, learning who your friends are and knowing you've got a smaller group of people, but they've supported you during that process and what have you. And you realise that a lot of people, it's not that they are doing the dirty on you, or it's just that they're busy with their own lives. And my life doesn't matter to your life or anyone else's life. So people are just busy. So they write once to you, but there's obviously less people that write twice, and there's less people that write every week. You know, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So I knew that coming out. But because of the support I've had from the property world, and everybody's been messaging me saying, well, first of all, I've got a lot of long-standing clients and relationships in my sector, but also there's a lot of understanding of what I got myself into. Because if anybody's tried to develop a property, either work with builders and seen how bad they are, or try to take on projects so even property sources, when they try and be deal packages and stuff, you know, I did a little bit of that because I was responsible for the project. So although they're trying to juggle GDVs and they've got more things going on that they can relate to me, and people that have gone off and employed builders who have been let down can relate to me, and people that are sailing close to the wind now can relate to, you know. So there's I think in the property industry there's a lot of people that can relate to what I went through, and maybe there's a lot of similar, you know, I was a reckless entrepreneur, you know, and there's a lot of people that I'm so jealous of people that can learn before a mistake. I don't even learn from my mistakes. I learn from fucking like a trade and standards knock on the door. And I have to just accept that it took my 20s. And I was saying to someone the other day, they said, what? I had that many people. When I first went into property and estate agency, I was made a branch manager within 6 months of being in a estate agency, like age 20 or just under 20. I thought I could take over the fucking world. And all these people in property telling me, you know, oh, you're going to be this massive multimillionaire when you're old, you're going to be this, you're going to be that. And I was believing all that bullshit. So I was in such a hurry I thought I was Lionel Messi of the property industry. You just think you're such a, because I always worked with these older guys, and I was this in chest, and I believed my own bullshit sort of thing, and not in a bad way. I never had like flash cars or flash this, but I just always thought, I've got this potential to be this, and then if you've not got any fail safes along that way, you're just going to go 100 miles an hour towards that goal, thinking it's your destiny to have these.
But is there anything wrong with that? Like, I'm very driven and passionate, and I think that character trait that we both share becomes what you use the word reckless. It becomes reckless when it has a negative result.
Yeah.
When you invest in a property really fast and you move quick, or maybe you're into crypto and you're shooting loads of money into a certain project that you've not researched.
Yeah.
That's only reckless when you lose.
It is, but you've just got to
win. You're just entrepreneurial, right?
You're
driven, you're passionate.
During my reckless time, I basically I wasn't a full-time father, so my responsibility, I thought, was fighting for shared custody, but I didn't have day-to-day. Then I've now got 3 girls that live with me and the missus sort of thing. So age, maturing in business, and knowing what my industry is, what my skill is, and I've niched in something and it's gone well. So I'm enjoying. I like being liked as well, that sort of thing. So it's nice to be good at something and be known for it. And then keeping the flair, if you like, and keeping the desire to be creative and always trying to be forward in business and ideas, but knowing. So ever since 2018, I've always had a business partner, that has complemented that other side of my thingy. And prior to that, I was like, oh no, I don't need anyone, and it's just learning that. I just, if at that time in London when I was vulnerable, so my dad died in 2013, my son was born in 2014, 6 months later my son, my missus at the time had disappeared with him. Then I moved to London. And then all the jobs started fucking up, so I was dealing with all the stress, the guilt, the problems with all of that. And that 2.5-year cycle, 3-year cycle from my dad dying to getting shared custody, I was just a mess.
Yeah.
But
That's quite a roller coaster, isn't it?
Yeah. But it was compounded by my natural doing things badly myself as well.
You said it earlier on. At the time, you don't know you're in that mess until you look back, right?
Yeah.
So when you're in a state like that, what was the outlet? Because everybody will run an outlet, right?
Yeah, so I was hiding away. So I gambled. I gambled more in my early 20s because I grew up with a Chinese family, always gambling.
Yeah.
So it was just common for me to have people that I was working with, because we used to work split shifts in the Chinese restaurant. This was my teens that worked at a Chinese restaurant. They all go to the bookies. So that was a normal thing. So I gambled in my 20s, and then didn't really gamble. Moved to London. And when I couldn't go to the building jobs, and this is what I admitted to trade standard, admit to everyone, I used gambling as an outlet to hide away. So not so much gambling, just hiding in the bookies, or doing something that wasn't, I suppose, filling the void of being responsible for my accepting the reality of my day-to-day life. I would just hide away. And the reality is, I think trading standards. The newspaper headline, Cowboy Builder gambles £1 million. I think when you read the article, it says that over the course of the 2-year period, I placed 40 grand's worth of bets, and I actually brought 42 grand in. So it could have been even the same £100 just constantly doing it. It's just like in the betting accounts like that. So it wasn't like I'd take a big stage payment and go and like gamble it. But what I was saying in the interview with Trading Standards is that even if you go to the bookies, you're supposed to go to the building job in the morning, you realise you've got too much stress, you can't face it. So I do a left turn instead of a right. I go and sit in, and I say bookies, a lot of it was just sat on my phone in the car, in that car park, just paralysed, just, listen to podcasts and then just putting bets on and just trying to hide away. If I lost £100 at 9 o'clock and then won that £100 back by 5 o'clock, so I've not lost anything, except I've lost 8 hours that I should have been concentrating on the building job. That's what my gambling cost. It cost my attention to being responsible. And again, I didn't learn this until being in prison, when I almost double reflected on what had happened. When you're going through trauma, you create apathy to other people's feelings. You don't pick up on stuff because you're in your own head, and you've got your own trauma. So, because I've thought to myself quite a few times, because I had a client cry, and now if I had a client, you would just do everything to be like, that would shock you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would, yeah.
Didn't shock me at the time.
Yeah, you just
because I was
numb to
apathetic,
it.
numb. Yeah, because I was I was just in shock and trauma myself.
Yeah.
Some of it my own doing, some of it external, but I wasn't picking up on these little emotional cues from clients. I had no attachment to the problem I was creating, and this, in particular with fraud cases, where there's no intention. A lot of times, rather than slowing down, you accelerate to a problem and go off the cliff because the apathy is getting bigger, and you're hiding away more, but you're reverting to type, so you're booking more jobs in, and that's what I did. I created a bigger problem for myself. Whereas, even when I got shared custody and the clouds lifted, look back, and go, bloody hell! Like I was more upset 6 months later for what had happened than when it was actually face to face. Yeah, because you're just in this trauma state.
Yeah, I can really relate to that.
Yeah.
Like when I was going through a seriously stressful time in my former corporate career, I used booze as my outlet.
Right.
And I think that what you touched on there was that you called it trauma. I like to call it like a serious range of emotion where one day we start on our arse, and then something amazing happens, and that spike of adrenaline. What's the love hormone? Not cortisol, the other one.
Endorphins.
Endorphins, yeah. They spike and you put you on a high, and I think it's that range. And the booze used to bring me back parallel.
Right. Yeah.
Because it was the booze that numbed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this low emotion went, and the high emotion went. I came down onto a level that I could manage. And like you've said it again, and like I'd never really thought about this until speaking to you today. This outlet that brings us on a level. We don't know that there is a level until the levels are over, and we then look back.
Yeah, it's reflecting, and I think just so long as I can. This is why I'm I think talking about it. It's not even. I don't even have to think. Oh, I'm going to decide to talk about this. It's just like a natural thing. For me,
I'm exactly the same.
If someone says to me, "All right, well, why did it happen? Why did it start? Why couldn't you get yourself out of it? And what have you done since?" You can answer all of those things in a way that people aren't going to go, well, he's a fucking crook. This is, the people have lost out to my actions, and I paid the price for that, and I accepted that, and I compensated for that, and I will continue to compensate for that. So from their perspective, the aggrieved parties, it doesn't matter if I had a Bentley and stole the money, or if it just went on another 10 weeks delay, they've still lost 100 grand, for example. So from their perspective, the pain is just the same, and that's why you have to accept the punishment and accept responsibility. But from my own story of what happened in terms of the process and the steps that went through, there's no embarrassment or shame with what happened in terms of I would feel dirty if I tried to run away and disappear from it, and if I wasn't accountable for it. And
there's also the thing you kept touching about, an intention as well. Like you never set out to get into this position, right? But there are people that do that. Like the full intention to just rinse all the revenue and then fucking disappear off the face of the earth. Now, then people should feel dirty, and rightly so. And I don't think you're in that camp at all.
But you do reach a point, and I'm very happy to talk about that. I reached a point where I was aware I was robbing Peter to pay Paul negatively, and we said before where they break you down. And honestly, I went to this interview. I ended up bloody crying in front of the trade standards person, because it just shocked me, because they brought me into this trade standards interview, all these boxes, and I had it's like operation whatever. So I was an operation whatever. And just the blood went out of my head. I was like, fuck. This is pretty
serious.
And then there was two of them, and they were bringing off invoice after invoice and related to my bank statement over and over again. And we were saying, this is just cash flow, being a builder with shit cash flow. Robbing Peter to pay Paul, you got a stage payment coming in there, and you got to plug 2 holes there, and it's just then the next day that money, But if you sit down with an investigator financial forensic investigator and they break that down, every single tiny lie is a fraud.
Yeah.
And you know, how can you argue against that? You know, it is. And I got myself, due to my natural way about me, I led clients down the garden path. Yeah.
But robbing Peter to pay Paul, I'll make the assumption that, correct me if I'm wrong, you never intended for the last person to get fucked.
No, exactly.
No,
yeah.
Because you think that you can just keep doing it, right?
Yeah. And
I think that's the difference.
The last job, and I've said this in the interview as well, there was one last job, the very last job, where when the lad started on site, I had this horrible feeling in my stomach where I thought the game's up here and I haven't got the confidence this job's going to finish. And I feel so upset for that client because I knew, really, I kind of almost half admitted it at that point. That was, and I was only on that site for about 3 weeks before.
Was there a temptation at that point to get another job in?
No.
No, you knew that was it?
Yeah, that was it, yeah. I was already applying for estate. The halfway point as well, by the way, so there's companies, I was applying for estate agent jobs at that halfway point to try and earn decent salary, and then, you know, thinking, look, if I get £100,000 job, then I could earn enough money to put these things in.
Yeah.
And then at that point, at the end as well, on that last job, I was applying for jobs outside of the building, obviously, because, you know, no one's going to employ me as a project manager in building, are they? Got a great CV. Here you go. So yeah, but that I do have guilt about that last job. If I'm honest, yeah, I'm not ashamed to admit that. It was the same. It was this gypsy guy, and he was desperate for the job to start. You know, he would say, and he said he could do the first 50% on a price. It was all going to be looked after. And I went in like that. Whereas the others, I was sort of trying to make changes to put it right. The last job, I was not confident. Yeah. Which is, I think at some point, if a Ponzi ends, it's got to end, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I'd never heard the word Ponzi, but one of the clients at the time said, you know, you've created a Ponzi. All you've done is come to London and create a Ponzi.
Do you know how many people I see doing that, though, and they don't even know they're doing it?
Yeah.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And I've had people say to me, look, can you lend me £100,000? I've got to pay this investor back. And I go, you know what that is, don't you? Oh, no, it's not. I'm hoping they know about it. And it's like, no.
I didn't realise that so in the industry that I'm in now well, not now, but I've been in with the HMOs, that Ponzi situation is more common than, you know, I really realised.
Oh, because, yeah, mate, yeah.
You know, I'm getting lots of transparency with. Good thing about this year, a lot of the clients I'm speaking to, we're having so much more. I was going to say it before, the fear of something happening when it actually happens. So I lost my business, I lost all my staff, all my money's gone. I've lost my son. I'm a car towed. You know, everything's gone. And also the press. I was, you know, as you found out, I was in Lad Bible, Daily Mail, Independent, Guardian. For a small trading standards fraud case, I was in every single national newspaper. So, you know, then you think reputation's gone as well.
Yeah.
So I've lost absolutely everything. But it's actually, you turn up to meetings now and people talk to you about their mistakes or their issues or their because previously everybody's trying to prove that they're successful, aren't they? You know, social media in particular. I've never really been, that's not my style on social media anyway. But everybody's always saying, like, you know, oh, I've just bought this. Everyone's doing like what they call humble brags, aren't they?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you saw my previous social media where I pretend to stick like I'd had like a Volkswagen and I'd cut out like a Lamborghini thing and stuck it on.
Yeah, I've seen that. Was that you?
Yeah,
I've seen that. And the Rolex sticker on the hand.
Yeah. So
I think I used that photo. I think I nicked it and used it.
Yeah. So I'd always take the piss out, but everyone is kind of, you know, faking it till they make it or trying to make themselves. And, you know, if they are successful, they're proud of it and stuff like that. But now, this year, I'm meeting people and they're saying, oh, you know what, if you could sell this property for, you know, because, you know, to be truthful, I'm having a divorce, or to be truthful, you know, we're up against it, we're skint, we've got this, we've got that. And it's really refreshing, actually. So every single client, I feel like I'm bonding a lot more with people. Yeah.
That's the old Seneca line, isn't it? What does he say? In every adversity lies the seed of greater benefit. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, maybe. And where it will go, I'm sort of just so pleased that I put a lot of effort and a lot of time in with all of my property clients over the years, where first of all that I've been accepted back, you know, and that I'm not talking about the crime that we've just talked about there, the fraud. You'd say, well, why wouldn't they accept back, sort of thing. So the actual reality of it, but it's the newspapers that have come out about me, which made me think, anybody that doesn't know me, Google that, and then they think, well, and I've said dozens of times to lots of people, if I Googled myself, I wouldn't work with me. You wouldn't, would you? Because it just looks so extreme. So the fact that I'm now able to implement the business plan that I put together in prison, I've got partners on board, I've got I've got a structure that enables me to just be an employee, because it can't be a director, things like that. There is no shadow directorship going on. There's a board of directors, they're making all decisions. I've got my perfect role, but it's completely perfectly structured in terms of my situation, with the fallout from the sentencing and everything like that. I've got the perfect team around me. I've got the role in the industry that I'm back to doing what I really enjoy. So where that leads going forward in terms of having more conversations like this, it can turn into, you can actually be quite excited by it.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I've got one last question. I think I already know the answer to this.
Go on.
So to be open and transparent when you left prison, was that a conscious tactical decision, or is it natural?
I wrote in my diary that I would wait 6 months because James Timpson offered me a job. So he offered me a job, and he actually gave me a car for a month as well, which was unbelievable, above and beyond. And I said in my diary, this prison diary that I was writing every day, I'm not going to go on social media for 6 months because I can't cope with, you know, obviously everybody's going to, the abuse I was going to get, whatever it was. I was just really worried about it. I lasted 6 days. I did.
That's the natural instinct, right?
I did a couple of days over Christmas, and then I was just like, do you know what?
Fuck it.
Exactly. If there's no way back, then I'll better find out in 6 days rather than, you know, because then I would have turned the Timpson thing into a career, because they do a lot of Timpson's foundations, and I could have, there's no white collar education in prison, it's all blue collar funnels, and I was thinking, I could go down that road, there's other stuff I could do. So I just went online and I just wrote an apology transparency thing, pinned it to the top, because I couldn't log into my old Facebook, because emails just, when you get sentenced, you lose your phone, everything goes, doesn't it? So I'd start again, joined a couple of, and I think Ash, and I've got this conversation with Ash from the HMO group, I was with him last week actually, he put a post saying Richard Nicholls has been sentenced and tagged my article, and obviously there's like 1,000 comments. Always knew he was a shyster and stuff like that, people I've never met, always knew he was a wrong un. I was like, cheers Nan, thanks for writing that. And then but a few of them, you think, like, one of them was like, oh, I knew him 7 or 8 years ago. This was actually before the London thing. I knew him 7 or 8 years ago. Always knew he was a cokehead, right? And I was like, where's that come from? You know, like, what are you actually? And then someone's like, oh yeah, he's a pisshead, he's a cokehead. And I'm like, you're just saying stuff now, just to sort of like. So I think I rejoined Facebook, and then I commented on a couple of those saying, like, and then, but I was being like, I'm here for a whipping sort of thing. I've completely accepted I've fucked up, but you know, and then it just carried on from there. And I was just photographing myself again with the Timpsons thing. He told me I'm starting a certain job at Timpsons, but again, because it was over Christmas, the area manager didn't get the memo to the branch manager. So I've just come out of prison, I've got a tag on my leg, said to the kids that I've got a job. I don't know if you know this, but the Timpson shirts are bloody sewn into their jumpers. So it's like a built-in tie jumper shirt thing. Imagine putting one of those on now.
I think I've got one of them.
Have you? Yeah. So ended up like walking 40 minutes to this other bloody retail estate, other side of Shrewsbury. Got there, the manager goes, "Who are you?" He said, "I don't know, you're starting." So then I had to turn round, walk all the way back home in the rain. And then I just thought, well, I'm just going to talk about it, put it on my Facebook, and just was like, I'm supposed to be walking to my first day at work, been told I'm not wanted, walking back, you know, and it's like, I just, and then from there you then get people saying, you know, good on you, good for being transparent, and lots of people have actually said, there's a few people that I'm working with now who are quite wary, not to work with me because they knew me, but for their own rep. Yeah, so they're like, you know, I'm not going to jump into bed with you just yet. I'm going to test the temperature of the room. So it was a few months, February, March, April, and then gradually, okay, you know, and if you think from my perspective, the first person that did a video with me, think how big that was for them.
Gamble,
to back me. And then the first person that let me talk at their networking event or something like that, or even just supported me on a post and said, you know, welcome back. Think of it from their perspective. Again, everybody's their own little island, aren't they, with their own rep. They were sussing out, is he damaged goods or not? And what's the fallout for me if I back this guy?
Yeah. Do you know what? I was going to wrap it up there, but you've just touched something there that's like really front of mind for me right now. So there's a well, I call him famous. What's the word I'm looking for? High profile property trainer out there at the minute owes lots of my friends lots of money. And I've previously promoted him. He's spoken on my stage. And I love him as a person, as a human being. We've met, we've drank together, we've ate food together. You know, we've met each other's partners and stuff. And I almost didn't want to accept the stories. And I've defended him as well to people. I've said, look, stop fucking sticking up for me, he owes me money. And I'm like, nah.
And then did you have a light bulb moment?
Yeah. And it was like, fuck. Like, I'm associated with him, whether I like it or not. Even though I'm not, it's only sort of socially and from an emotional perspective. I'm not financially tied to him, but that was just what you were saying there about, do people want to...
But and using that example, and this particular guy, let's say this guy has fucked up, in theory. Let's say that he owes £1 million out.
Yeah, right? He's hiding now.
Right, but let's say he didn't hide.
Yeah.
And let's say he came onto everyone's platform, had a meeting, had a committee, all got together and said, I've fucked up. This is the steps I'm going to do to put it right. And then over a 5-year cycle, 10-year cycle, he put all that right.
Yeah.
You can do that after that fuck up. You haven't got to run away and disappear.
And you'd have so much more respect for someone doing that as well, other than someone that's hiding. Yeah. Now, the rumours are he's fucked off abroad.
Yeah. And so the clients that dislike me, if you like, from those building clients, because I couldn't directly transfer them any money, and my barrister said to me, when we go to the sentencing hearing, we're going to tell them about the compensation then, because they're going to sit up in their chair. And he said to me, you never get a builder save up anywhere near like even £5,000 to go back when they get done for a bad job. Obviously 6 figures is just like the judge is going to go, wow, you know, what a great situation. So I don't think that the clients knew I was saving compensation over those years. So I think they thought, oh, look at him, he's running off, he's building a business and we're not going to benefit at all from it. And then it didn't get brought in till later on. But after sentencing, and I've got the screenshot on my phone, for some people said, well, but you didn't pay back compensation. And when I've showed them the money in my solicitor's client account and the transfer and showed them, look, you know, I've saved this money up, it changes people's opinion. That you don't even need to pay it all. If you owe £1 million, or in my case, say 300 grand or 250 grand, whatever, if you're paying people back 10 grand a month towards that pro rata for the next 5 years, you're going to get so much more respect.
Oh, totally.
You know, and you haven't got to take the iceberg on or start doing good once you've got the iceberg. You can start just chipping away at it and giving little bits and turning it, and that's what I think part of doing things like this is about. It's so daunting to try and put all those bad things wrong. You haven't got to put them all right in 5 minutes. You've just got to start in the right foot to actually make amends for what you've done wrong. Yeah,
mate. Fucking hell. It's been a great story. Been great to speak to you.
I get a bit like buzzed off it, sort of thing. It's like, you know, I'll have a crash in a minute. I've got to drive to Newcastle. Then you have a crash, and you're like, oh my God, I've overshared again.
No, it's been great. And, you know, I've loved watching you grow, and mate, to the future. Like, long may it continue. Thanks for coming up.
No worries, mate.
Thanks for sticking around till the end. All the social handles from both of us are below. I'll see you in the next one.